Discussion for ARP planning.
Good afternoon, everybody. We've been looking forward to this discussion, so hopefully we get a lot of business done today. Okay. After our initial meeting we had, I think it was January 10th, we come together and we worked out a top 5 list from council, and that was a good start. From that point, I received individual breakdowns of the top 20 lists from all of you, which I sure appreciate you, and I thank you for your diligence on that. So if we take a look, and I want to make sure I want to preference this, the list we have is the priorities, and it took all of your information together and it kind of gave us our top 20 list. And that was the goal of the meeting, was to get council's list together. But when you take a look at it, probably around half of them are probably not really ARP. They don't fit under the ARP funding, but they're the list that that you guys decided and it was important to you. So that's good. So we got that down for you. Okay. I'm going to go into and I'll share my screen here. Or can you guys all see the list on your screens? Okay. Okay, so if we go down, let's bump down to the, this down to the bottom. So we can kind of look at, the priority as they came through. After looking at the top 5 list, the individual economic relief payment was at the top of the list, but after receiving everybody's top 20 list, it really moved up to the #1 priority for the council. So that was good. It was a good setup. Okay. If we take and so if we go right there and we take a look at that the #1 priority that we have right now is the individual economic relief payment. I'm going to bring you to tab 2, is what you guys all received in your packet. So it kind of lists the breakdown of a payment, if that's the way we'd like to go, as U.S. Tribal Council. Okay. I broke it down into 4 options. The first option being 100% payout. This original allocation was built on our enrollment number. So it's kind of important that we look at our people that way. Okay. So, go ahead.
So what the guidelines say on this is to look at what the federal regulations are and what the feds have done. So far the feds have paid out $2,000 per year. So they say to use that calculation. So it looks like if the tribe wanted to do that, we have 3 years to spend that out. So the suggestion is not to go over $2,000 a year. So what Zach has done is kind of show what some of the payments could do. It'd be like $2,000 one year, $1,800 one year, maybe $1,064. The council could do a decision of how they want to split that up among the 3 years. But to not be under scrutiny by the feds we would suggest not to do over 2,000, since that's what the feds have done.
Okay. And again, that's a great question. Does it fall into the category? Yes. Do we have additional funding coming here at the end of July? Yes. So again, when we take a look at this, and just keep that in mind, that we're following our guidelines and we're going to do what's best. We'll give you the information you can do, and you guys can make a decision how you'd want to proceed. Okay. All right, so everything is built off of that first option. Option 1 is the 100% payout over the 3-year period, if that's the way council would like to go. Like if you kind of read that little sentence right there, is just kind of what Katie just alluded to, that they give you some guidelines and some parameters on those payment amounts, and we're well within those guidelines. Okay. Again, all these payments, just like that last signs we put on there, all payments are subject to availability of funds. So if we start or for the first fiscal year, this first fiscal year of 2000, we can look at it and we can reevaluate at any time. Okay,
Question, Zach.
sure.
So on the 3 years, instead of breaking them up with the 164, we could just do a 1,600 across each year. I mean, so those are all flexible.
Oh, yeah. And that, that's purely up to you guys, how you guys want to do that. Okay, I just wanted to give you something that you could look at and do some estimates and then break it down for you and give you some options. So right off the bat, we utilize 8,000 members for the next 3 years, cross our fingers. We were approaching 8,200 members not too long ago, but we're down to just a hair over 8,000 members right now. And man, I'm not sure if we'll be able to hold that number through those next 2 years, but that's the number I used. Okay. If we go down, that's option one, doing 100% payout over the 3-year period. Option two is kind of a split of those two. Doing a 50% payout, which would be about, for just year one, using that $2,000 payment, a 50% payout would be $1,000 payout. And then the other half of it would go into a hardship relief fund. And the hardship relief fund is something that we took a look at. I'm going to tab you over to one more tab so you can see it. You can kind of see it. Okay. We took what you normally, and we kind of reviewed some minutes and, from historical knowledge, what we all have seen and heard in our meetings, of different kind of things that people would like to get, that come to council for approval to help them with through certain needs. So we kind of put a list of those ones up there for you to take a look at. But they'll require some additional information and some additional guidance from council right off the bat. It's a process that we can do this for 3 years. We can come up with an amount if you'd like to do, on that. If we kind of go back to the first slide, we had $8 million going into this hardship fund, and the next year we had, I think, about 7 million. And then the final year, about, I think, 4. So there's a total amount that would go into this hardship fund that we would have a pretty loose application process. We'd still need some direction and guidance on if this is one of the options you'd like to do. Yes. Okay. Go ahead. We got a whole hour.
I could take up an hour with my discussion, so
Okay.
get ready, Martin. No, I would like to see us maybe write down what our options are, and if your option doesn't exist, what Zach has provided, then we can put it together, because I've heard people say, well, I don't agree with any of those options. So if you have different ideas, maybe you need to lay them on the table. But my thought is, now this is the first pool of money. We don't know what the second pool of money will be and what the requirements of that is, right?
No, not right now.
Okay, so there could be a second pool. So I'm thinking if you did an initial payout of this, of whatever, I think I've thrown out a figure, 2,000. And then you use the rest of this money for, for our things that we have laid out in our rating sheets. And then the next pool, we could make another decision if we're going to have one next year and the next year. But this way, it kind of gives us to be able to pay out something and then get people. I mean, I've just watched a lot of people recently struggling, and I'm surprised, because I thought these payouts that we had before would have got them kicked off and back in. But I see people majorly struggling in our departments. Like, I'm sure DHRD are really hampered with requests. I mean, there was 200 and 22 requests of, well, you know this, Zach, because you had to, you watch them come in,
Mhm.
of requests for food vouchers and other things, just inundated with that. So I know there's a real need. And so I'm thinking if we can get money on the ground right away, and then the next 2 years, we'll decide when the next pool of money comes out, and then go through our priorities with the rest of the funds that are left in this earmark. That's my thought.
Yeah.
But I know people disagree with me because they have their own thoughts, and I would like to hear from them.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In considering why this pool of funds should be considered for benefits to the membership, it's based on the enrolled membership. And anything that will come from the other allocation, such as premium pay and other benefits, because it was based on employment, or it will be, is why we carved off this particular funding to discuss in the way of membership benefit. The suggestion I would personally add, it's not reflected here, is you could array a portion of the allocation specifically for elders, or specifically for school-age children, or specifically for those who are in very severe, dire economic hardship, which is probably none of us in this room. So I would just ask you to consider that if you were of the mind to see some options different. The other thing about the threshold, the guidance on the funds is evolving as we speak. It seems like every other day Treasury is issuing an update to the FAQs. And so I think all of us are engaged in what that information is, and as it's coming forward. So I think we're of the mind that the 2,000 limit is an annual limit, but I would not be surprised if it was a one-time limit. I just, it's just kind of hard to track where some of the mindset is going on that. So that would be just one other comment I'd care to make. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. Any other council comments or? Go ahead, Sharmil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I've been trying to ascertain, get some intelligence about what happened in this last 12 months when we had the relief money paid out. How did it, how do I want to state this? What were the remaining needs or dire needs? And I think I brought this up in one of our previous discussions. What can we tell about the dire need requests that were made after the relief payments were paid out last year? And the reason why I want to know that, or I think it's important to understand that, is because, maybe there's just a better way of trying to look at this or structure it. As you've shown the type of economic hardship examples, I would suppose there's a good portion of those that that were dire need issues after we paid out last year $3,000 total per tribal member within was it August and December. So that was within a 6-month period. $3,000 was paid out and available per tribal member, unrestricted, just paid out. And then after that, I know we had some things that came to our table as far as, dire needs and issues. And I guess that's what I'd like to understand in regard to, do we want to try to split this up or not? Or do we, how do we, it's really a good question. How do we best allocate this? And yes, it's per capita that it was issued. It's per enrollment, data. So I guess if we were paying out 100%, for example, I would hope that that list of economic hardship was something that we wouldn't have to be concerned about, because those are the things that people are needing to take care of, right? Those are the needs that the people have, and they want the money to be able to pay those things. So is there, what kind of best advice do we have based on the recent past?
Madam Chair, I think it's hard to answer that question in regard, just from my experience coming from housing too, in the regard of dire need. With the economy that's been going on, what I have seen a lot of is dire need is a lot of people who are above just that threshold of 80% because of all the rising costs. I personally have seen people who are right above it who don't qualify, and rents have skyrocketed because of all the people who moved in. People are selling their houses from underneath them and they can't get into a new rental. People are paying $1,800 and they can't afford it. So that dire need has rose. So there is such a greater need. So even though it sounds like a lot of money for some people, it hasn't been. So there is a greater dire need because of what has happened to our economy, because of all the influx of people who've moved in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mrs. Gillen, I apologize. I did create that report of the dire need processed after those payments, and I have it sitting on my computer waiting to send to you all. And it's simply a snapshot of, and you see the names and you see the amount, what was issued from August to the end of last fiscal year, and then in the period since December of this past December. When you think about how many tribal members reside on the reservation, it's like 5,500. And you're seeing just a very tiny amount of those people represented in the dire need requests. My observation is it's a small percentage of people that will consume a great proportion of an assistance-based resource, no matter what it is, whether it's dire need, whether it's utility assistance, whatever it might be. $3,000 might sound like a lot of money to some people, but to some of us, it's really not that much. And it's a pretty relative thing. My personal belief would be that we should carve off an amount of this for that extreme hardship, because there's no other place for it to fall. It invariably falls in front of you who feel probably ill-equipped to manage those decisions on a daily basis. And right now, I am ready to get a meeting with DHRD about next year's elders program. They want to vastly increase the budget to serve more things to the elders. And it's that invariable question, you know, it can go on to infinity if you don't set a limit or a guideline somewhere. So Katie and I had sat and created that economic hardship list because it goes to so many of those things that, you know, as humans, we would expect or hope that it's available. And for some folks, it's just not. They cannot afford to fix a leak in their sink. They can't afford to replace a door that's letting all the heat out. They cannot afford to put tires on their car. And so that's kind of the extreme need that, you know, and we had not created a monetary cap on that, but that's why you do have to define what we will and possibly consider providing to meet what we would call a basic and essential need for their human existence. There is a lot of funding that's coming forward in a lot of different sources. And I think in all of that, this list, you know, it's a given, and it's my belief that they should have to apply for and leverage the resources they may be available and eligible for. And we've also seen that problem, people in dire need, kids even, that will not submit to and comply with our assistance programs. And that is a deeper, more serious problem that I hope we can get addressed through the wellness court, the drug court that you talk about. That underlying cause of addiction, that's just laying on top of everything. And thankfully, we have gotten other funding that's come through already under the rescue plan. And as Zach had said, you know, some of the priorities, the very good and well-understood priorities that you've laid out, we are sure can be addressed with those other sources of funds. So although it seems kind of radical that we came forward with the first option, well, you can just pay all this out to the membership and be good with that. I always believe you should be given the whole range of options. You kind of go from one extreme to the other, and hopefully we'll find a middle place there that you all can agree with. Or maybe it invites discussion to a fuller, better option that we hadn't come up with yet. So, thank you.
I think it's important to note too, that it doesn't mean that the rest of your priorities are not a priority, because there's been a lot of other fundings coming in, and tribal health has received a lot of funding as well. Ruth could tell you the amount to other departments have received a lot of funding to support this. So it doesn't mean that these priorities are not a priority. If they are your priority, the thought process is we can go to the departments and say, this is a council's priority. What funding do you have to make this happen? Because there's a lot of funding that is not being spent right now. And that is a goal of ours, is to get that money spent.
So as we move forward, we had presented on this list, there was 4 options. One is the 100% payout option. And option 2 was a split with a payment to the individuals and a payment to the hardship fund. And option 3 was looking at all of it into this hardship fund. And option 4 is the one that kind of breaks out everything. So it says there's a payment to a relief payment. There's a percentage that goes to the hardship fund, and then there's a percentage that goes to the rest of the priorities that fall under the ARP guidelines.
Go ahead, Charmel.
Thank you. I don't know if you've explained this already, Zach, and I've missed it, but in the scenario, in any of these scenarios where you've laid it out over a 3-year period, is there an expectation for a little bit of growth there too? And so this is 100% of everything? Or how does this work? There's a balance that's invested and sitting somewhere, probably a liquid, very low interest liquid fund that is of no significance.
Yeah, and it is true. It's a very low interest that will be generated. But what I would look at is when we receive the second funding here pretty quick, to kind of, you know, balance out everything. And I think with the priority list that you guys have come up with, and with the discussion that Katie and Ruth has just went through with you, a lot of this, you know, like I said, at least half of it really doesn't fall under those funding guidelines. So if we got the direction to go forward and get with the appropriate professional staff to come up with ideas to meet your priorities, I think we'd have a better idea of where we'll stand, and a better idea of where we can go into the future. So, you know, 3 years is a long time, and to get some stuff situated and get everything that we want. And when I say we, I mean the tribe, what we want to get accomplished, will take the time to get those things done. So, you know, right now, and again, it's hard to look at, you know, if you were to invest balances of portions of that, you're not going to receive, you know, what we would expect at these times. But moving forward, I think if we take a look at it, you know, get something going right now, get the people, you know, because they need, you know, just like Carol said, like everybody knows that there's a struggle out there, and everybody's feeling it. So I think if we were to do that, take a look at these things, get the right people in place and start addressing the priorities, I think would see a better picture.
Yeah. Katie? It's safe to say we know a number not to exceed for the annual to pay out. And then if you charged us saying, go to the departments with your priorities. And I would highly suggest ask them if they can accomplish this, if they have the staff and the personnel to do this. And if they can't, and you really want to see it done, do you want to hire a department to do that, to get it done in the 3 years? We have to obligate the money in 3 years, and it has to be spent within 5 years. So it has to be obligated and then spent in 5 years. So that has to be kept in mind. I think it's really important to also ask if the departments can get it done. And if not, then decide if you still want to get it done and how you're going to go about doing it.
Go ahead, Len.
So Katie, you just said we have to obligate the funds in 3 years, but we have 5 years to spend it. Is that what I heard?
Correct.
Okay.
Just like when the first funds we got from the CARES Act, and then when there was the construction involved, a lot of that stuff, it couldn't get accomplished in the timeline that they had. So, this one, I think they added some additional time because of what they seen on the first group of funding that came out. So they added, and it's a real good point, is that it has to be obligated in that 3rd year. So you have to know what you're going to spend it on. And after that point, that construction or whatever happens can continue to happen, and the payment can happen for those next 2 years. But in the 3rd year, it has to be obligated. So
Yeah. Contracts have to be signed. Everything has to be made by then.
Go ahead, Len.
So just to add to that, I really like what you had to say about the hardship and the elders and the youth, knowing that all of the elders are on a fixed income, and I found out that there's even some elders out there that are getting no monthly income, So when we move, if we choose to move forward with addressing that hardship and allocating some to the elders, I would like to include all of the elders. I don't want this to be based on income,
Mhm.
because I know some of our programs are based on income, and some of the elders can't get services, which is unfortunate, because I know this council has been really adamant about helping all of the elders, regardless of their finances. So I know today I would like us to make a decision on moving forward with a economic stimulus payment to the membership, and perhaps going with that option that allocate some of this money into a hardship fund, so we can address those issues, because last year was really tough on people. And I was very surprised, because after we made the payment, there were people coming in and wanting their sewer and water paid and their lights turned on. And but regardless, I mean, there's always going to be those situations that's beyond our control. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And this may be way out there, but Charmel, I think you might have mentioned it before about tying it somehow to the per capita. Did you say that before? Maybe increasing per capita from 400 to say 1,000 or 1,100 over a period of time, where then it's kind of, the payments are divided up, but then maybe we can find a way to sustain it into the,
Yeah.
You can't mix it?
You can't. Correct.
Madam Chair, I think,
Charmel and then Martin?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think just in regard to what you were saying, I was thinking about the method of payout, like how do you do it, the timing of it. It's being laid out as a 3-year, and I didn't know if there was some way of trying to, I guess, troubleshoot the ongoing request from the membership to do something more, you know, in the years out. And I realize they're different funding sources. But nevertheless, we're always being asked to come up with more money. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. And I know, you know, that probably just makes Ruth's head explode thinking about it, but those are the challenges.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Zach, and then, so who's gonna be the ones to decide whether or not this rises to the occasion of a payout for an individual? Because a lot of people have, DHRD, for whatever reason, people just don't go there because of prior treatment, their requirements, things like that. I don't feel like we should put it on them. And then I start thinking like the amount of work that your department went through for these two payouts, the added staff, the added, cost of that. So I like the idea of that, but I don't like the practice of it. I would rather just either we're going to pay it out and we're not going to be like, hey, you have to prove to us. I mean, that's, someone that's struggling, it's kind of a slap in the face to come in, and that's what we always say when people come here, this is usually their last stop. They've reached rock bottom and they come here and then we make them go, prove how bad off they are. And I just don't feel like that's, what we need to do. I know that there's going to be some paperwork, like the last payouts, but having an additional, like, it's, we got to treat people not just like numbers, actually like treat them like, our family, which they are. Thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
I think that's a really good question. It's something Zach and I visited about this morning, and I don't really know the answer. And I said, maybe it's something, if we don't do that, it's something, do a really good PR campaign about the payout and say, this payout is to help with these things, and to remind them that there is the emergency rental assistance program that the housing has. And then housing also is going to be having the homeownership assistance foundation or fund that's going to be coming out, that DHRD has the water sewer assistance, and hitting them really hard with a good PR campaign to remind them about the other assistance that's coming out. Because I know other departments are struggling with trying to keep up with all those assistance, but otherwise I don't know the answer to that. It's gonna take a lot of brain power to figure that part out.
Go ahead, Zach.
These have been all good points, and I kind of want to come back to a couple of you. When I was thinking about the per capita, the last two payouts we did happen after each per capita. So there was it created a little difficulty, but we got better numbers at that time to do those things. So, we were looking at, and we were talking right at the beginning that, this was early, that if there ended up be a payment, we were going to do a payment over the 3 years, we would pick June to be the month for the payment. So we would look at next June and the following June. We missed this June because we've missed this June. It could. But that's what we're kind of looking at. So it was something that, it was just before the per capita, kind of, it fit, and it just kind of fit in a good spot right there. Kind of going back to what Lynn said, with the elders, and, and it kind of addresses what Katie was talking about is, we do have a lot of elders out there, and like you said, there's a lot of elders that don't have income right now, or in the past they had an income, but they're not the ones that are going to come up and come to the tribe and ask for that. So, when I think of the relief payment, just like what Katie just said, if we make a real effort to make sure everybody understands, this payment is to help you in all these different areas. And if you would, take some of it and make sure you're ready for that next big, emergency you have, and save some of it, that would be great. But it would be on you. We want you as tribal members to do that. And for us to grow and us to be able to handle, what we need to do and become more self-sufficient, we got to treat our elders like that. Like they're, that they got the right mindset. And like Lynn said, we have a group of people, in anything, we'll always have problems with certain things. But we want to make them feel like, they are family. And just, it was a great point Martin just said, we need to treat everybody like family, and we'll do that. And that payment does that way. So, that's all I wanted to kind of come back to with the three that I just heard from. Thank you.
Ed Martin.
So for the sake of time, we hypothetically could approve a payout for 2,000 for this year, and then maybe regroup, maybe talk to our constituents and really truly find out, what they want to do, or what they want, or what would be best for them. Because I know that, you talk to some and they want to pay out. There's others that feel this is a good opportunity to invest in our futures, in our children's futures. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really struggling with this, that, I'm probably in that position where I'm in this position, and I shouldn't be, right? But that's the reality I'm in because of my life and being unemployed for, X amount of time and blah, blah, blah. I'm still catching up. So, there are other people that, I'm sure present themselves or look like me or feel like they should be in a situation. And it's a struggle, it truly is. And, I'm not saying, like it's about me, but there are plenty of people out there that put on a good face, that put on a good show basically, and are struggling terribly. And so, I feel like this first one is a no-brainer. And we need to go forward and really, and that's the one thing I feel like, we up here get detached from reality. And it's we have to ground ourselves. We have to realize, like, there are people out there with full-time jobs that struggle, that make decent money that struggle, for whatever reason. And it's just, we can't think that, and that's the other thing is, like, this whole thing, the paternal relationship that the government had with tribes is what we are doing now. And I don't feel like, we need to treat our membership like children and tell them how to spend, money that's kind of allocated for them. So thank you.
Carol.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think I'm more attached to reality sitting up here due to the fact that, I see the struggles, I watch what's going on, and I get to experience it on phone calls, emails, text messages, and it's just, it's unreal to watch. But I know some people are chasing the scream. They need their drugs, but for the most part, a lot of people need it to just get by. And so I think whatever we can do to make life easier and not babysit them, we all have needs. And I think whatever we can do to get it out to them as soon as possible and not put any obstacles in the way, I think we need to do it. And then sit down and look at the rest of our list and do what we need to do. And I appreciate you, Katie, from your perspective of coming from housing and seeing what goes on there, and then coming here and then now watching what's going on and the dire need with the finances and all of that. So I really appreciate your input into it. So, well, all of you actually, because I know you work hard for us. So thank you.
I would just add, I also don't feel like I want to see anybody being penalized who goes to work every day. We do have the folks who probably struggle more than others, but we also have people who make work a priority and are oftentimes taking care of kids or grandkids, or, they have struggles too, even though they may be working and making money where somebody might not be, or, you know, struggling with addictions or whatever, but I don't feel like I want to penalize those who are trying everything they can to make a life too, so. Are there any other comments, or where do we go from here? Go ahead, Charmel, and then Carol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm ready as well to move forward. I guess the only thing that I'm curious about is whether or not this team would recommend reserving any portion for that dire need issue, a smaller portion. Would there be a different option? I guess if we weren't reserving a portion for economic hardship per se, such as your options 2, 3, and 4, if we were looking at a full allocation for tribal member relief, but Ruth mentioned that, you know, we still need to figure out, you know, what are we going to do about that half of 1% or whatever. And maybe that's nothing to be concerned about right now. Maybe we just go with what we have for dire need budget for the remainder of this fiscal year and address it in a future period of time. Would that be something that you could see happening?
Go ahead, Zach.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, right now, nobody's saying that you have to make a complete decision on the 38 million. Everything, I mean, you don't have, you can say you only wanna make a decision on 10 million today, or however much you want. So it's up to you guys as a council.
Martin?
Ruth, what was the amount that Elders is gonna request to increase their budget? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Thank you, Mr. Charlotte. The request that is being preliminarily discussed is to add some more employees to their staff and to increase their vehicle and supply and equipment needs and costs. And they also had included a couple of things that actually aren't part of their budget, but they are currently at about 622,000, and they'd be going up to just under 1 million.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize a $2,000 payout to every single tribal member for $2,000 to happen as soon as possible. No, within the constraints that but in a timely manner.
You know, and that's, you know, that's one thing we've been looking at.
No holds.
No holds. Exactly. That's a great point. I've been looking at that and talking to IRMA enrollment just to make sure we don't want to cross, you know, what's going on right now, but 3 weeks is probably enough. We could, depending on how we want to do it, we can set it up like we did on our second payment where you apply, and as you apply, we make a payment every Thursday. And when we did that, a majority of the payments happened in the first 2 weeks. Versus the first time we picked a date and said that we would only make that payment at that time. And I think they both work, but I think it puts less pressure on people, gets the information out faster. And I think if we do a payment at the end of the week, starting, you know, with 3 weeks, maybe 4, so maybe on July 16th, we could probably, if we can get the online thing out, set up. I can talk to Rob and see if we can talk about getting the cards out, because that did bring in more people that didn't know about it, or, you know, that don't live here and don't have, you know, access to all that and don't hear all the information. We
Okay,
got a couple more people in, so.
With the July 16th date.
Charmel, did you have a comment?
Question for clarification before we move forward. Do we need a resolution, and what about the enrolled as of X date?
That's a great point. You know, if we're gonna try to do a payment before August, we would use April's per capita listing and address and all that information to issue the payment before August. But if we were gonna do something after August, we would use August's per capita. So it would be a week or two after the per capita, so we could get that information in place. So we would utilize August or April's information to get something out by July.
Okay, so Len, comment?
I'm just gonna make a second.
Oh, Martin's made the second. So we had a motion on the floor by Carol and a motion by Martin. All those in favor? Second, sorry. Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Yes, they would have to be eligible for April's per capita.
Thank you.
And then, Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Martin.
if we could, Zach, and team, probably schedule something, in the next couple weeks about the remaining, kind of get, maybe we could have full 10 here to figure out the rest and, do the same. Really like the idea of, our strengthening our elders programs. But again, that's only a 5-year fix. We definitely need sustainable funding for that. I love pumping money into things, but we got to make sure that we can sustain it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Carol?
I just wanted to say, Katie, your idea about getting, why this is going out and what the need, using it for these needs, power bills, whatever the case may be, or even holding on to a little of it for, future things that come up. So I really like that idea, and maybe Rob could figure out a commercial to do that this COVID payment's coming out, and, or whatever you're gonna call it, relief fund's gonna come out, and, think about these things. But I think just getting the word out is a good idea.
I see Rob's on here, so I think he heard that.
Go ahead, Zach.
Okay, and kind of going back to in the next couple of weeks, and I'll email out the priority list that you guys came up with. And then we can start, really, getting with those people and the professionals and start getting that stuff addressed. And we'll come up with real action plans for you for those things. So I think that can happen real soon.
Martin and then Charmel.
Charmel was first. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Charmel. Sorry.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify then, because according to the motion that was just taken in the action, and then your comment subsequent to that, we're looking at enrolled members as of the April 2021 per capita payment, which means any new potential enrollees after a date in March 2021 would not be included in this relief.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
won't even have that number available for August per capita.
Exactly.
So that's why
So
we
there are-
utilize that.
So
that
there are
April.
individuals who will not be receiving relief according to this action, but that's because that's the only information we have certified
Correct.
for an immediate payout. Thank you.
Martin?
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that one too and how we could figure that out. But I think one thing that we definitely should be cognizant of is this idea of sustainability. I think that this money could be used to do something that would help, say, sustain a $300,000 a year bump to the elders program. So, when we're re-looking at our priorities, I think that's, as council, that's really, really important to think about those things. Like, yes, a payout is great for the membership, but, things like re-look at those priorities. And after kind of having some conversations with people, I changed my priorities. I changed my number one to something that would be, bringing revenue for the tribes that we could put towards something else. And so that, take that at however you guys want, but that's something that I think we, for the remaining funds, let's look at things that can really help our membership going forward, long term, not just, next year, 5 years, we're talking, generations. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, this is Rick.
Rick, and go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, thank you. I was just listening, and I'm wondering if it would be potentially a little bit easier to just change the wording so that it's enrolled at the time of the payment, enrolled and alive at the time the payment is made. Because if we're going to be doing something over time, I think there are circumstances that come up, births and new enrollments that it does make sense to address. And if we're not going to, if we're going to use just a point in time enrollment information, I think it would be better to just use, for example, all of the information we have for the April per capita and send all of that money out on a specific date. Don't worry about the application process if one isn't necessary. But if we're going to request people to apply, I think it would be much easier to just add a clarifier that if they're enrolled and alive at the time of the payment being made, it would cover that future state, because there are many people who are still submitting applications for the last COVID. Not many, but it took a while for people to get their applications in for a lot of different reasons.
Madam Chair.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bing and then Carol.
Me? Okay, yeah, I thought the action was actually just to authorize it, and then you guys would bring back a resolution that would spell out the details of it, of what it takes place. That's normally how it happens. So this is just to authorize moving forward. Then you bring back the resolution that approves the date, the how you're going to do it, the who's eligible, and no holds, that kind of thing.
We can,
Right.
and yes, that's correct. We can do that too.
Thank you. Bing, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like all the ideas, I really do, and Lynn's idea with helping the elders is something that I wanted to do from day one. Excuse me, I got in trouble for asking to help with with their sewer and water payments, but that didn't happen. But anyway, I'd like to still see if we can help them some way or another in that in a way like that, so funds can be available for them, and then a lot of times they're talking about this hardship funds and whatnot. A lot of these elders and people look at that and, well, they're going to put some of this money in a hardship fund, and it goes to housing or something. Housing's going to put some restrictions on it. I won't get no hardship funds out of this, how that goes. And it goes that's always, they've got that in their mind already. It's built up there and it stays there, but they can't get any help from them because of their financial situations, talking about too much money or doesn't meet the obligation that housing requires to get help. But everybody has some great ideas. You sit here, listen to them all. It's good to hear that everybody is pretty much in all everybody's in agreement about this, and I like it, but still I'm like Lan, I said, I'm still voting for the help for the elders some way or another, and I mean, I'm one of them, but I'd like to help those out there and first, before I ever do anything, but it would be great that we could come up with some kind of plan to assist them in some way or another.
Thank you, Bing. Any other comments, questions? If not, thank you.
All right,
You have your marching orders, I guess.
thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Does anybody need a break before lands? Are you good to go? 5 minutes? Okay. 5-minute break.
2:05. Yeah, any questions? Are you done yet? Well, you're welcome, incumbents.
Oh, geez.
Come on, Carol, you know I had to.
Yeah, you.
Hot mic, Martin, quit talking about me.
call the meeting back to order. And we have markup with plans. And Stu and Mike are both on.
Yes, and before we start going again, we're gonna be going over the ordinance and things, so we would like to be in executive.
Okay, we'll go out of regular into executive. Ready when you are.
Okay.